Welcome back, family. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of highly sensitive persons, or HSPs. If you've ever felt like you experience the world more intensely than others, or if you know someone who seems to be more affected by their environment, this video might offer some valuable insights. Before we begin, it's important to note that while the concept of HSPs has gained popularity in recent years, it's not without controversy in the scientific community. Some researchers argue that high sensitivity is a distinct trait, while others view it as part of a broader spectrum of personality characteristics. As we explore this topic, keep in mind that psychology is an evolving field, and our understanding of these concepts continues to develop. In this video, we'll explore 5 key aspects of being an HSP, how this trait shapes others' perceptions, and how it might manifest differently across cultures. Let's get started. Sensory processing sensitivity. At the core of the HSP trait is what researchers call sensory processing sensitivity. This means that HSPs process sensory information more deeply than others. You might notice subtle sounds, smells, or visual details that others miss entirely. Dr. Elaine Aron, who pioneered research on HSPs, found that this sensitivity is linked to differences in the brain's neural pathways. HSPs have more active mirror neurons, which are responsible for empathy and understanding others' emotions. This explains why you might find yourself tearing up at a touching commercial or feeling physically uncomfortable when watching violence in movies. This heightened sensitivity can be both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, HSPs often appreciate beauty more deeply and can create highly harmonious environments. On the other hand, they're more prone to overstimulation and may struggle in chaotic or noisy settings. How others perceive this trait can vary. Some might appreciate an HSP's attention to detail and ability to create comfortable spaces. Others might view HSPs as too sensitive or easily overwhelmed, especially in cultures that value stoicism or toughness. Emotional depth and empathy. HSPs don't just notice others' feelings, they often absorb them. This goes beyond simple empathy. It's as if they're experiencing others' emotions firsthand. A study published in the journal Brain and Behavior found that HSPs show increased activation in brain regions associated with emotional processing, particularly when viewing images of their loved ones displaying strong emotions. This emotional depth can make HSPs incredible friends and partners. They're often the first to notice when someone's upset, even if that person is trying to hide it. They can provide comfort and understanding in a way that feels almost telepathic to others. However, this trait can also lead to emotional exhaustion if not managed carefully. HSPs might find themselves taking on the stress and anxiety of those around them, even when it's not their burden to bear. In professional settings, this emotional sensitivity can be both an asset and a challenge. HSPs might excel in fields that require emotional intelligence, like counseling or human resources. However, they might struggle in high-stress environments or with colleagues who are less emotionally aware. It's worth noting that the expression and perception of emotional sensitivity can vary significantly across cultures. In some cultures, especially those that value collective harmony, the HSP's emotional attunement might be highly prized. In others, particularly those that emphasize individualism and emotional restraint, it might be seen as a weakness. Depth of processing. HSPs don't just experience the world more intensely, they also process it more deeply. This isn't about intelligence, though many HSPs are highly intelligent, but about the tendency to analyze and reflect on experiences more thoroughly. A study published in the journal Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience found that HSPs show more activity in brain regions associated with deep cognitive processing when presented with subtle visual stimuli. In other words, their brains work overtime to extract meaning from even the smallest details. This depth of processing can make HSPs brilliant problem solvers and creative thinkers. They're often able to see connections that others miss, and come up with innovative solutions. However, it can also lead to overthinking and analysis paralysis. HSPs might struggle to make decisions quickly because they're constantly weighing all possible outcomes. In professional settings, this trait can be a double-edged sword. HSPs might be valued for their strategic thinking and attention to detail. However, in fast-paced environments that require quick decisions, their tendency to process deeply might be seen as a hindrance. It's interesting to note that the value placed on deep processing can vary across cultures. In some Eastern cultures, for instance, thoughtful contemplation is highly valued, and the HSP's tendency towards deep reflection might be seen as a sign of wisdom. In more action-oriented cultures, however, this same trait might be perceived as indecisiveness or overthinking. Given their rich inner world and deep processing of experiences, highly sensitive persons, or HSPs, often need more downtime than others to recharge. This isn't laziness or antisocial behavior. It's a genuine physiological need. Their brains are working overtime to process all the input they receive, and this takes energy. A study published in the Journal of Individual Differences found that HSPs report higher levels of stress and overwhelm in overstimulating environments and benefit more from periods of solitude and low stimulation. This need for downtime can manifest in various ways. HSPs might need to retreat to a quiet room after a busy day at work. They might prefer small gatherings to large parties. They might need more sleep than others to feel fully rested. How this aspect of the HSP personality is perceived can vary greatly. In cultures that value constant productivity and social interaction, the HSP's need for solitude might be seen as a weakness or antisocial tendency. In cultures that place a higher value on introspection and inner peace, this same trait might be respected and understood. It's important for HSPs to recognize and honor their need for downtime, regardless of cultural expectations. This time alone isn't just about rest. It's about processing and integrating experiences, which is crucial for the HSP's well-being and ability to function effectively in the world. Many HSPs tend to be highly conscientious, often to the point of perfectionism. They have a strong sense of responsibility and a deep-seated need to do things right. This isn't just about following rules. It's about a genuine desire to avoid harming others or making mistakes that could have negative consequences. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that HSPs score higher on measures of conscientiousness and are more likely to engage in prosocial behaviors. This conscientiousness can make them excellent employees, reliable friends, and thoughtful citizens. However, this trait can also lead to stress and burnout if not managed carefully. HSPs might struggle with delegating tasks or saying no to requests, even when they're already overwhelmed. Their high standards for themselves can also impact their relationships, as they might be overly critical of themselves, which can be difficult for loved ones to witness. The perception of this trait can vary widely across cultures. In some cultures, particularly those with a strong emphasis on social harmony and collective responsibility, the HSP's conscientiousness might be highly valued. In more individualistic cultures, or those with a more relaxed attitude towards rules and obligations, this same trait might be seen as uptight or unnecessarily rigid. It's crucial to recognize that the concept of the highly sensitive person, as well as how sensitivity is perceived and expressed, can vary significantly across cultures. While the trait itself appears to be biologically based and present in a similar proportion of people across different populations, its manifestation and social acceptance can differ greatly. For instance, in many Western cultures, there's often an emphasis on extroversion, assertiveness, and emotional control. In these contexts, HSPs might feel out of place or pressured to conform to less sensitive ways of being. On the other hand, some Eastern cultures place a higher value on introspection, emotional attunement, and careful consideration in decision-making, traits that align well with the HSP profile. It's also worth noting that gender expectations can intersect with cultural norms to shape how sensitivity is perceived. In many cultures, sensitivity is seen as a more acceptable trait in women than in men, which can create additional challenges for male HSPs. As our world becomes increasingly interconnected, understanding these cultural variations in the expression and perception of sensitivity becomes ever more important. It highlights the need for cultural competence in psychology and reminds us to be cautious about applying one cultural standard of normal sensitivity across all populations. Understanding the trait of high sensitivity can be immensely valuable, whether you're an HSP yourself or you interact with HSPs in your personal or professional life. Remember, being an HSP isn't a flaw or a weakness. It's a valuable trait that brings depth, empathy, and insight to our world. However, it's also important to approach this concept with a critical mind. While research on HSPs is growing, it's still a relatively new field, and our understanding continues to evolve. Some researchers argue that sensitivity exists on a spectrum rather than as a distinct category, and debate continues about how best to measure and define this trait. If you recognized yourself in this video, I encourage you to learn more about the HSP trait, while also remembering that you're a unique individual, not defined by any single characteristic. Understanding your sensitivity can be the key to harnessing its strengths while managing its challenges. For those who aren't HSPs, this understanding can help you be a more compassionate friend, partner, colleague, or leader. Recognizing and valuing different ways of experiencing and interacting with the world can lead to more inclusive and harmonious relationships and environments. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to PsycKeys for more insights into the fascinating world of psychology. Remember, diversity and sensitivity, like all forms of neurodiversity, enriches our world. By understanding and appreciating these differences, we can create a more empathetic and inclusive society for everyone. Until our next video, take care of yourselves and each other.